Sorry about 906. I was talking to our first guest in the green room. We get carried away. We always do. John, here, you there. Freestyle Friday, and it's time to let you know what's going on today. We're going to kind of be bouncing around all over the place. We've got playoffs in lower division. Scott Wells joining us, the head coach at Asheville City, coming up at 10 o'clock. Darin van Tassell, Grand Exalted Pooh Boss, South Georgia Tormenta, joining us here in just a little bit and talk about a very, very special day for South Georgia Tormenta, for soccer in general in the Southeast, for USL League One on the whole. There's a couple of different things to get into there, and we might have a couple of other guests come by. Yes, we're going to be talking about Canada soccer. Yes, we're going to be talking about Canada soccer. They had a press conference, and no, I wasn't being redundant. It was more for emphasis. The CEO of Canada Soccer, Kevin Blue, this morning, East Coast time, called a pseudo press conference-y kind of a thing via Zoom from his hotel room with about 30 minutes notice. And there were some things that he revealed in that we'll be getting into, plus part of his opening statement. There's a lot to get into, and all I'm going to say about it is this. To lead off anyway, when the business of journalism has a lot of great investigative journalists that are a part of it. Fantastic journalists. And when one of them comes knocking on the door, we always talk about in investigative stories, when there's more than one author and a byline, you know you're in trouble, first and foremost. When you have a fantastic investigative journalist knocking on your door, you know you're in trouble. Morning four card. When Rick Westhead of TSN, the number one sports network in Canada, when Rick Westhead starts putting bylines to stories, you're up that creek without a paddle, a canoe, and a place to land. You've got no port. You have no dock. You have no boat. You don't have an oar. You're up-ish creek. And that's where Canada soccer is right now. When Rick Westhead came out with a long piece where sources were talking to him about stuff, the call's coming from inside the house. That's where things are with Canada soccer right now. That's how bad it is. And this morning, Kevin Blue decided, okay, 30 minutes notice. I've got to go ahead and say something. And so he did. We'll get into that. We've got part of his opening statement that we'll be playing this morning. So that's where we are. In Canada soccer, the women's team got a win yesterday. No Bev Priestman, on the touchline or anything. She got sent home. But Canada soccer is in a world of hurt by their own doing, possibly, probably, allegedly, probably, maybe. Like I said, we'll get into this. We'll get into the Westhead piece. We'll get into the press conference from this morning. Is it technically a press conference if it's just a Zoom from a hotel? I don't know. Anyway, so that's where we are. That's the lay of the land. We're going to be spending a lot of time with Canada soccer this morning, previewing the weekend that will be. We've got Leagues Cup tonight with Atlanta United, DC United, and So, and if you want a high-speed train in Paris right now, that got sabotaged. So, the opening ceremonies might be interesting. Keep our fingers crossed on that. All right, 9:10. I filibustered enough. Time to bring in the Grand Exalted Pooh Bot, South Georgia Tormenta, Darin van Tassell, and talk about stuff. Because, DVT, yesterday you had a very, very cool day in Statesboro on a bunch of different levels.
It was a fun day. I think anytime you get to talk about the EFL and Tormenta and, quite frankly, soccer in the United States, it's a good day. It's certainly better than talking about the plight of where the Canadians Federation is at the moment. They're having a tough morning, tough couple days.
You ain't kidding, brother. For those that don't know,
you just don't do that. That's the rule.
No, you do it yourself when you're allowed to do it, but there are like no fly zones and things that you're supposed to pay attention to. Yet you do it yourself. That's cool if you're allowed to do it. If you're doing it and you're doing it with somebody else not knowing, that's a bad thing. Canada soccer's in a world of hurt. For those that don't know what happened yesterday, and I've got to ask about the dynamics and the dimensions of this. Burton Albion comes knocking on South Georgia Tormenta's door and is like, we like one of your players. And Nick Akoto is now a part of the Brewers over on the other side of the Atlantic. and you set a record for a transfer fee in USL League One. And it's a special day on a bunch of different levels because of the scouting and the development and knowing that Nick is a talented player, and then folks knock on your door and now you move him on to his next frontier.
It went pretty fast, John. We had probably turned down 5 offers for Nick over the past year already, but the one with Burton went pretty quickly. Lots of pros on their side, and it probably all got done in about 72 hours.
Really?
By the time it was there, at least on the verbal commitments. Had some paperwork to do and that sort of thing, but it was well on its way. We probably started talking about it on a Thursday, and we had Nick back in England by Tuesday morning.
How does something like this work? I mean, is it literally like WhatsApp and phone calls, and it's like, Mr. Van Tassell, Burton Albion calling? How does this work?
It's just communication. It's not overly sexy more than anything else. But listen, we've tried to, as a club, tried to be ready for these conversations when they've happened. It's not the first time we've transferred. We've never transferred anyone at this level, much less for for these kind of rewards and the ones that hopefully will keep coming as Nick continues to grow. But it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. It's the legitimizers we want happening to our club. I have to say it probably is a legitimizer for the USL as much as it is for Nick and for Tormenta.
When you look at what Nick has been able to accomplish and how he has grown, not just as an athlete, but as an individual, what has it been like to see him grow and mature to the young man that he is, to where he can represent Tormenta now over back in England with Burton Albion?
He had a massive amount of growth, and I will give our organization a lot of credit for that. Nick came to us sort of not terribly well known. He came to the United States, played NAIA, won a title at Kaiser, but not really on many people's radar. But it was that League Two summer. It was clear to us what sort of athlete Nick was, but he was pretty raw. So when you bring that world-class NFL wide receiver speed with that sort of body, you got to learn to play defense and a whole bunch of things. And he did that. He took that to heart. And Nick also became kind of the DNA of our club. I love that his first photo with Burton back in England was with the Burton scarf, and he had one of our Tormenta tribute jerseys to Carter Payne, and he turned it backwards.
Yeah.
He and Carter were best friends. And so when we lost Carter, that, what people wouldn't know, every training top that Nick has Carter's name on the back. Nobody sees it, just the team. But it was something that mattered to him, and he's been wearing that for the last couple of years. So I think in his big moment, to also want to pay homage to the club that he came from, that's who we want to be. That's fun. That's what sports is there. And meanwhile, we've got to go win out in Fresno this weekend, headed to the airport here in about 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to circle back to Carter and Nick for a little bit of it, but yeah, you got the wheels up from Statesboro to Fresno. I know it's leaving in a couple hours. That direct flight is right there waiting for you. I know it is.
Yeah, thankfully it's only one stop.
Yeah. All right. So break this down for me. How do you get from Savannah to Fresno?
Straight through Dallas, DFW.
Okay.
It's a bang bang.
Okay.
We have not done a single trip that was more than one stop, and many of them are nonstops. One of the best kept secrets is the Savannah Hilton Head Airport. It's spot on.
Okay. We'll have to talk to those folks about being such a great secret. Another part of what happened yesterday was that you brought in a Georgian who is a legend in southeastern USL football to help you out for the remainder of the year. It's not every day that you can knock on a door and sit there and go, Aaron Walker, come on in and help things out. I mean, that was a pretty big, I think that kind of flew below the radar. Everybody was looking at the Nick Akoto signing and going, yeah, that's a big blanking deal. But you bring in somebody to help you out with that kind of experience that was a part of the derby in years past.
And we've been working on Aaron for a bit. It wasn't linked to Nick's transfer. We felt like we needed some leadership in the midfield. I got tired of playing against Aaron. Same was true with Connor Doyle when he was at Union Omaha and Chattanooga before then. The having that kind of leadership in our midfield now is really important. Listen, Aaron's 34, Connor's 32. It certainly gives us a pretty older midfield. I like experience, but we have so many first year pros that leadership's going to be critical for us. And he arrived, he is active, and we'll be hopping on the airplane here in a couple hours as well.
That's crazy. I mean, when you have the second half of the season right now, north of the playoff bar, and focusing now on the run in when it comes to chasing after playoffs and chasing after yet another title, where right now do you think your squad is when it comes to the chaos that is traditionally USL League One getting into the second half of this season?
You know, we had to make some decisions. How much do we add to the club by adding personnel, and how much do we double down on what we have? In general, we're doubling down. I think we've got the right folks, but I also don't think we're done adding quite yet. Ask me that question again in a couple more weeks. We've got to, I think, strengthen a couple of spots for us. Active in negotiations. We'll see how quickly that will bear fruit. But for the most part, I like our team. I think we got the right mixture. We were young, a lot of first-year pros making some first-year mistakes, but we're also growing like first-year pros can do all at the same time. So, listen, it's the fun time of year. We gave ourselves some challenges 2 weeks ago to get the most points in our league in all competitions. We've gotten 5 points in those last 2 games. Hopefully there's another 3 coming this weekend.
Right now, and I will always maintain that USL League One is one of the most competitive leagues on the planet because of how chaotic it can be. Right now, you've got 2 groups, and your first group is 5 teams separated by 3 points. Union Omaha, Greenville, Ford, Madison, Charlotte, and 1 Knox. They're all separated by 3 points right now. And then you're a part of that second group of 6 through 10 where you're the leader in the pack. And you've got Spokane chasing you, Chattanooga chasing you, Hailstorm chasing you, Richmond chasing you, and it's 5 teams separated by, once again, 3 points. And so this is, for anyone who knows USL League One, this is normal for you. This is the chaos is normal.
Yeah, it's very normal, and we've played more games too, so we can't afford to drop too many points along the way. So listen, this is also really, really fun. Fuego's a desperate team. They're going to give us all kind of fits. Jermaine Jones is a seasoned professional. That team is really starting to find his personality. That takes some time to get done. So we've got to be at our best. But listen, that's why we're playing. That's the whole game. That's the whole fun part about this.
There are a lot of Jermaine Jones jokes that can be said. You mentioned how they adopt his playing style. So it's like, okay, so it's grabbing folks, pulling them down, getting unnecessary yellow card. There's a Jermaine Jones joke in there somewhere, but we mean that in the physical sense.
Well, they did get 2 late red cards against Madison on Wednesday. So there's 2 center backs are not available for selection. There was some grabbing and pulling down.
So yelling,
ironic on cue,
yelling at officials and making sure that
nothing like that. It wasn't for dissent, but it was anyway. We got booked late, and we'll have to take advantage of it. But it's just going to make them hungrier. There's probably going to be a few more midfielders on the field, and they are pressing like crazy. So anyway, it should be a fun game to watch.
No doubt.
Clearly, USL After Dark, 11 o'clock Eastern. For those keeping track.
Oh boy, I wanted to circle back to Nick and Carter here before we let you go. Greg Garza coming up at the bottom of the hour to discuss things from our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. To see that photo of Nick and continuing to remember Carter and to have that as a part of his own DNA, and it's always going to be a part of Tormenta's DNA. What did it mean to everybody to know that he's always that close, in the sense of Nick's always going to be that close to Carter? Nick's always going to have that piece of the organization with him. He's always going to have that tie to his friend with him. I thought that was a really cool photo that discusses Nick's present and what he's carrying with him from his past as well.
I think when you play in a market the size of ours, you have to be as close to a family as possible. It has to be one of our X factors for us. Clearly, Nick felt that way. The organization feels that way. Family can move all over the world. They just stay in the circle. Nick clearly will be that. I didn't even know I was supposed to be a Burton Albion fan a week ago, but I am now. I know all about the Brewers. And so what fun it's going to be. And you know, when you have your biggest moments in life and you want to make sure that is also recognized, because I Sterling did that when we won the cup that night. He wanted Nick's shirt on. It was his version of the same shirt that Nick had on, and all the players wore it that night. So listen, legacies are important, and names being spoken often and being remembered are is a part of the human condition. We thrive on those moments, and we want to keep winning and looking for all the new things that are to come. So that part's great. Can't wait to watch Nick play. I know Nick will be keeping up every bit. I texted with Nick several times yesterday, even. And with so many eyes on the EFL and League One, we can thank Ryan Reynolds and Rob for the wonderful version. He gets to play against Wrexham. I already noted when those dates are going to be, but there's several Premier League teams that are now in League One who've been up at that high before. So great stuff. It shows you probably in our country how the sport of soccer in our country is more connected to the global game than perhaps any of our other sports that we follow collectively. I find that pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, very, very cool as always. And by the way, Burton Albion kicks off against the Imps of Lincoln City Saturday, August the 10th at a 5:30 local time kick. And so they've kind of staggered things a little bit. And I know that there's going to be a massive iPlayer subscription coming out of Statesboro, Georgia, to make sure that everybody's keeping an eye on Burton Albion, eh?
I'm going to have to learn even how to get registered. So fun stuff. Thanks for letting me come on this morning and talking about it. You always have your pulse on all things soccer, and clearly you've already been on the press conference for Team Canada.
Yeah, it's yeah.
They keep winning. I don't know what they're doing, but they won last night, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, so we'll find out. We'll get into that. As always, my friend, go pack and be safe and get to Fresno in one piece. We'll catch up with you soon. Thanks.
All right, John. Be well. Bye-bye.
Right, that's Darin. That's DVT. Darin van Tassell. Grand Exalted Pooh Bob. Everything South Georgia Tormenta. Big day. Big day for South Georgia Tormenta. Big day for USL League One. Big day for soccer in Statesboro in general. So a lot of different markers hit with the Nick Akoto signing, as Nick is now a part of Burton Albion. Like I said, Burton Albion starting their season off at home against Lincoln City in League One. Like I said, I know there's going to be a lot of iPlayer subscriptions that will be coming out of Statesboro, Georgia, to see what's going on. It's Barnsley, Mansfield, Birmingham City, who was relegated from the championship, Reading. So Jessica Charman is going to have she's going to have a vested interest in what's going on. So Jessica Charman and Nick Akoto. So Burton Albion and Reading, keep an eye when that matchup pops up. You've got Blackpool, who was in the Prem. Rotherham, who got relegated from the championship last year. They had a horrendous season in the championship, first one to be relegated. Bolton Wanderers, we know about Bolton and their history in the Premier League. Huddersfield had a couple of seasons under David Wagner in the Premier League before they were relegated. And so you're looking at Wigan also, Wrexham. We know about Wigan and their win in the FA Cup over Manchester City, where Gus Johnson Warren Barton, you hear Gus Johnson yell, "Miracle," when Wigan beat Manchester City. Roberto Martinez, the former head coach at Wigan Athletic, was a part of that. Then Charlton Athletic, we know about their ownership issues. Wrexham does not have ownership issues. They're in League One. Wycombe Wanderers, they had a cup of coffee in the championship. They're back down to League One. So that is what you're staring at with Nick Akoto and Burton Albion. Yeah, I kept talking to Darin. Darin had to catch a plane. He had to get ready and actually, pack for a trip to for a trip to Fresno, California. So late tonight, and it is USL After Dark, USL League One After Dark, with Fresno and South Georgia Tormenta. And so it's always, like I said, it's always cool to get what's going on in USL League One. Always great to find out what's going on there with Darin and what they're building on a bunch of different levels with South Georgia Tormenta and USL League One. So the USL League One, you can catch up with our USL League One programming, our review preview that we always post. Just to give you a quick reminder about what's going on. Big day Saturday. They're the late night game Saturday at Fresno against Central Valley. Greenville's hosting One Knox. Lex SC is hosting Richmond Kickers. Ford Madison's hosting Hailstorm. Union Omaha's hosting Red Wolves. Spokane is hosting Charlotte. Central Valley is hosting South Georgia Tormenta. So this is the week when the Eastern teams go west. I know, I can't wait for that Santa Barbara trip, man. That's going to be cool. But all 12 teams active out of the first round, out of the group stage of Jägermeister Cup. And so they're in league play. And so you've got all 6 games going on Saturday. USL League One After Dark just happens to be Spokane hosting Charlotte, Central Valley hosting South Georgia Tormenta. But a big day for USL League One, big day for Tormenta, and a big day for soccer really in the Southeast. So very, very cool stuff. And as always, I literally will text if something's going on the planet and that it is involving South Georgia Tormenta. I kind of just will text Darin and it's like, yo, can you come on? He's like, yes. So he has been a fantastic friend of the SDH network ever since day one, and we've kind of taken this road together. And so to be able to circle back in on a big day like what happened yesterday with Darin van Tassell and Nick Akoto and Burton Albion and South Georgia Tormenta, all of those. Big day for all of them yesterday for Choice D, all of the above. Before Greg joins us, I know I'm kind of drifting in and out of things, but like I said, there's going to be a lot of time this morning that we are going to be discussing what in the blue you-know-what is going on with Canada soccer. Like I said, Kevin Blue, speaking of blue, you end up with Kevin Blue, the CEO of Canada Soccer, on 30 minutes notice, basically having a press conference this morning discussing what's going on. And, it was a bit of a surprise to the media that he would call the press conference when he did. But this is just a little bit of it, and we'll get into the conversation once again. And this is courtesy of our friends at Canada Soccer from this morning, a bit of an opening statement from Kevin Blue, CEO of Canada Soccer, about what's been going on the last couple of days.
Hi, everybody. I'm here today, unfortunately, to speak with you in what are unfortunate circumstances. Instead of celebrating the Olympic Games and the occasion of the Olympic Games, we're here discussing what appear to be, frankly, unacceptable shortcomings of ethics on the part of some individuals representing our country. Look, I want to speak directly about this issue and speak directly to the people it's affecting. First, to our players, my heart goes out to you. I feel deeply for our players who are engaged in, what is supposed to be a lifetime highlight of being an Olympian, of representing Canada and competing for a gold medal. I'm here, in France, in the hotel on the ground with our players, and I've been in constant contact and communication with them throughout. And my experiences with the players over the last couple of days, reinforced to me what I've known to be true before, which is that they are, frankly, they're champions and true professionals, and they're focused on the task at hand. Canada Soccer President Peter Aguirre and I met with our team this morning to discuss the matter with them and express our continued availability and our continued support to our team. Look, we admire deeply the will and determination of this group. The players themselves have not been involved in any unethical behavior. And frankly, we ask FIFA to take that into consideration if contemplating any further sanctions. Specifically, we do not feel that a deduction of points in this tournament would be fair to our players, particularly in light of the significant and immediate steps we've taken to address this situation.
Kevin Blue, CEO of Canada Soccer. We'll get into more of that as the show goes on. But it is 9:30, and it's 9:30 Eastern time. Let me phrase it that way, because our next guest is not, I believe, in the Eastern time zone. I believe he is not in the Eastern time zone. It's time for the Friday Free Kick with our buddies from Beyond Goals. So, Greg, where actually are you? Are you in Texas?
Yes, sir.
So, visiting family and making sure that you get to take the family tours and everything. So, how is Texas? ?
Texas is great. I'm sacrificing my body right now to get bit by tons of mosquitoes so I don't wake my I'm just kidding. I don't wake my kids up.
I was like, wait a minute. So I should have just given you some dryer sheets or something to be out there with you.
Well, we have to in my parents' neighborhood. You have to be in your house by like 8:30, 9 p.m. because they found a case of West Nile not too long ago. So hopefully I'm safe, man. I just sprayed this all over me, man.
Wow.
But yeah. Mosquitoes are bad here, man. They are, and I don't know what it is that you have to have. No, it's your blood type. It's your blood type. I'm O positive, so I think O positive is I mean, mosquitoes love me, man.
Well, and that they do me as well. I couldn't tell you what my blood type is to save my life at any point.
That's an important thing. That's an important thing to know, man.
Oh, I know. But when I had family reunions in Minnesota, and the joke in Minnesota is that the mosquito is the state bird, because it is so prevalent, and land of 10,000 lakes and all that kind of stuff. Had a family reunion, literally, and to your point, outside at dusk, and this kind of skin tone and mosquitoes. I was like the lighthouse on the pier, man. They're like, ooh, let's go and grab him. And so literally, I had mosquito bites, like 50 to 75 mosquito bites all over me, and I had to go inside, and it was just like red, welt. So I know with what you're talking about.
That's how it is right now, for sure. Yeah, so I just saw somebody put in Paris, Texas. No, I'm not in Paris, Texas. Dallas, Texas. I wish I was in Paris for the Olympics, but that's another story. I do have a lot of mentees that are actually there, which is a pretty cool experience.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So what are the conversations like with the mentees about their experience?
Can we change lives for about a few weeks?
There you
go. That was no, just I think I always tell people, the best experiences I think I had, even as a professional athlete, was just to be able to travel the world and see different cultures, experience different lives that people live. I recommend that to anyone. There is no better education than seeking out how others live life. I think it can teach such valuable lessons. For me, I think the biggest lesson it taught me was just the simplicity of life. Right? It's trying to always find happiness. I think you and I have talked about it, and I always speak to mentees. The two main things we must seek is happiness and love. And I think for me, going and traveling the world and seeing how others live, it teaches you a lot about those two words, for sure.
Well, but in this day and age, and I know that we're going like deep right off the beginning here, but how difficult is it to maintain those two things, knowing A, the environment that we're in these days, B, how competitive things can be, and C, the idea of, okay, I want to be competitive. I want to achieve whatever's at the mountaintop of your self-imposed mountaintop. How difficult is it to have those two things of happiness and love. How difficult is that these days? I imagine it might be a different task to grab both of those rings for adults and for mentees.
Very, very difficult, right? It's not an easy task. I think that's why they always say it's what we seek. That's what we always seek. It's what we always are looking for, and sometimes they can be hard to come by. But I mean, I think there are tools to try and get there, and I think that's why I think traveling and seeing other lives that are in other places can teach you. You can learn valuable lessons from it. I mean, I think for me, moving to Brazil at a young age was a valuable lesson for me. It was the simplicity of the life that they lived, and even doing cookouts on the weekends when you look and you see, okay, these people don't have much, but it's they still are able to be happy with what's in front of them, and I think that's a valuable lesson that I learned at a very young age, for sure.
Do you still keep in contact with a lot of the folks that you've met in these different environments when you were younger? Do you still reach out to them? Or are you still, Facebook friends or whatever these days? How deep?
Yeah, I don't do Facebook, but yeah, I for sure. I have friends that I played with whenever I was. It's interesting. I was at a house party the other night, a birthday party with one of my mentees' parents, and I mean, tons of people there. They're very fortunate. Let's just say that they're very fortunate. And there was this guy that was sitting down, and he started speaking Portuguese to me, and I had absolutely no idea who this guy was. And he's actually, I believe he is the head coach now for, is it Atlanta City? Is that one of the teams?
Okay.
Is that one of the amateur teams in Atlanta right now for is it UPSL or whatever?
I'll dig it up, but I'll take your word for it.
You'd have to. Oh, I thought you would for sure know all the. It's like all these different teams that they have. But he started speaking Portuguese to me, and he said, "Hey, do you know this one guy?" And I was like, "Hey, you gotta show me a picture of him." And then, sure enough, he showed me a picture of him. And this guy I played with when I played for Sao Paulo. It was his cousin, and it's such a small world, man. And so it's obviously meeting people like that and just kind of reminiscing and remembering people that were friends way back in the day. I think that is the beauty of soccer as well. You get to meet so many interesting people and find ways to connect with people. I think that's one thing that for anybody who is retiring in the professional sport environment, you have to realize that connections are so vital for the rest of your life. Don't be the guy who is segregated or separate from everybody, just always kind of in your own world, because when you do hang the boots up, whatever you decide to do in your next life, it all comes down to the great relationships and connections that you made. And I'm sure it's like that for anything in life, right? But it does play a massive role, because I think a lot of guys within professional environment, you get lost in just focusing on what's yours, and you kind of forget to make those valuable connections that will help you in the future. So I think that's one great thing that at least I thought about. I was very open-minded and always wanted to get to know people to their core, to not only build camaraderie, but also that's what helps all of us at the end of the day.
Yes, UPSL Atlanta City. You were correct in that.
There we go.
When it comes to, you mentioned Paris and mentees and all of this kind of stuff. I know that I'm kind of drifting in and out of topics this morning when guests come in, but I don't know if you've been keeping up to date with what's been going on with Canada Soccer and the chaos that's going on there on the women's team, and drones and people being sent home and all of those kinds of things that you're not supposed to do that they are doing. And apparently it's very, very pervasive and just not cool on a bunch of different levels. When you have conversations with mentees, how deep does it get into the do's and don'ts? And how you present yourself and what you should do as an individual, and the rights and wrongs of etiquette and things like that. How deep is it when you get off the field conversations? How deep are those moments that you guys have?
I am a firm believer that you must do anything you can to try and win, but not cheat.
Mm-hmm.
That is my only piece of advice there. Do whatever you can to do it to win. I know that we are all extremely competitive, right? Some more than others. I am a very competitive person. I want to beat you at ping pong today. I want to beat you at shuffleboard. I want to kick your ass at pool.
You
right?
want to beat me in the door when we're getting coffee.
Yeah. And exactly. Those are the things. I mean, I always tell people, be my guest at ping pong, pool, or shuffleboard, because I was an academy kid my whole entire life. So that's all we did besides play soccer was ping pong, shuffleboard, and pool. So I'm pretty darn good at all three of those. But it's for me, it's like anything you can to do to win. I always tell mentees when I tell them my strengths, right? I always tell them I was a gladiator on the field. If I were to get one major compliment whenever I walk around and people recognize me, people always say, man, I just remember how much you hustled and how much you just would let your body on the line to block a shot or anything. And that's the type of player that I would do anything to win. But never cheat, right? That's got to make you feel very uncomfortable. And I mean, imagine what they're going through right now in terms of, I think one of the worst words is embarrassment, right? That's got to be a terrible term to feel upon yourself, is feel embarrassed. Nobody wants to feel embarrassed. So it's a tough situation to be in. You got to do whatever it takes to win, but never cheat.
When it comes to you becoming that gladiator, I guess first and foremost, were you always that way? Was that something that was developed? Did you just make a decision? It's like, I've got to do this and I have to be this way to succeed. How did you become that gladiator out there on the field? What was the thought process?
I think that comes from just being born that way, honestly. My middle child is the exact same way. I had this conversation with my parents the other day, and it was interesting. I remember a few days ago, since we just got here a couple of days ago. I remember, I think my parents have home videos of when I was 4 years old. I had just started and I was playing up. They let me play in the, I guess, under 5, U5, and I think I had just turned 4. And I think there is a video of I get the ball off kickoff and I dribble straight to goal and I score. And then I get back and I put my foot on the halfway line and they kick off. I go and steal the ball and then I score again. And then the next play, the coach comes over and the coach is holding me by the collar and won't let me go to get the ball and steal it and score. He's holding me by the collar to hold me back. And I think it's just such a funny video because I was already like, I was in for the kill, man. I wanted to get that ball and just score. Right? I played forward way back in the day, right? My middle son is exactly like, he's like, I guess it's in the genes. He's exactly like, he does not care if it is 15-0. He is going to be like, his face, he's in for the kill, man. He is so concentrated, so focused that if you give him that chance to grab that ball, he doesn't care. He's going to take the whole team. He's going to score. I guess that's how I was from when I was just a little boy. And it's such a funny video because the coach is literally, there's no way in the world you could get away with that in today's world. I don't think I could hold the kid by his collar and just watch this kid just hold him.
I just have this vision. I just have spinning your wheels, man. You're like 4 inches off the ground and you're trying to get away from that collar.
Yep. So that's it's really funny to think back that actually happened to me as a really little boy when I had first started playing soccer. I think my team was called the King Cobras. So that was I guess that's something that I was just I always had in me.
Can you learn that behavior or does it have to be in you?
Man, I think it's I think you can teach what we call, I always talk about it because it's like, I think you and I have talked about it before, the Bielsa philosophy, the Tata philosophy, the Pep Guardiola philosophy, the Johan Cruyff philosophy, right? Philosophical method behind it, the lunatic mentality. We in Atlanta in 2017, 2018, we had that lunatic mentality. I remember Tata would always tell us, look, whenever you play, I want the other team to think that we are absolute crazy. We're going to press with 9, and the only person we're going to keep back is Parky. And I'm sure Parky, and excuse my language, I'm sure Parky was probably shitting bricks.
There's the explicit rating for the morning show.
Yeah. Playing 1v2, and he's the center back, the sweeper, keeper, 2 forwards there with him, and we were pressing with the whole team. But there were so many moments. I can just remember a particular game against Real Salt Lake in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers that game. I think Brandon Vasquez even came in and scored. That was like maybe one of his first games. I think we won the game, if I'm not mistaken, 4-0. And I think 3 of those goals we had won the ball from, I believe it was like Justin Glad who gave the ball away, and Nick Ramondo who had gave like 2 balls away, but because of how intensely crazy we pressed. And nobody did that when they played away, right? Nobody really pressed that similarly to the way we did. And I think that was something that I think Tata had instilled in us. And I think that's something that you can't teach, because I don't think every player had come into that situation with an open mind. And that's something Parky always talks about, being adaptable, right? He had already been a professional for 14 years before he came to Atlanta United, and there's no way in heck that he had ever experienced a coach to kind of make him think, that philosophical method of being a lunatic on the field. And I love giving the lunatic mentality example to kids when we do video analysis, especially for forwards or wingers or people who play up top who don't really think that way. They think defending has to come from the defenders and they have to be the ones to create and score opportunities. But it's interesting when you can help them understand that it can change things. So I do think there are things that are just, I like to say God-given, right? But at the same time, I think you can teach little bits and pieces of it to help people.
Sorry, I just have this vision now of Parky being back there by himself in a 1v2 situation, and him being creative, shall we say, about getting through the situation. you put that in my brain now when it comes to and
I mean, you're talking about one of the most experienced, and that's why I always say I loved watching experienced players. I mean, he figured out a way to deal with that, right? That's what great players do. Great players can adapt to any situation, and that's the beauty of it. So, I mean, I look at Jeff Larinowitz as another one of those guys who just adapted to so many different situations and places that I don't think he had ever played before. And I think Tata understood that he was able to get that out of certain players, even including myself. I think. In certain ways, I look back at those 2 years of my career and I think, man, that they got so much out of me. They got so much out of me, and in terms of a revival. Okay, somebody, Miss Abster put the final score 3-1. There you go. Alba Assad and Vasquez. Yeah.
By the way, you got a yellow in that match.
I did. I hacked the crap out of. I believe it was. I know he was Scandinavian. I want to say he was like Norwegian or Danish, maybe Swedish. I think he had just done something to Yamil. I think I told Yamil I'd get him back for him. So that was the gladiator. That was the gladiator mentality, wanting to step up for others. And I remember I did hack him pretty well. That was a very deserved yellow, but stepping up and trying to defend one of my teammates was more important for me at that time.
Yeah, and there was some dude on the right-hand side with the name of Brooks Lennon who was in that match as well. But yeah, three Brooks, and so you get a yellow, and lunatic mentality happened in RSL, and I find it's interesting to hear you talk about being a lunatic, which I know that you are in every aspect of your life, because you want to succeed in everything that you do, and you attack it with that same kind of fever and fervor when you understand that something can be done, should be done. You now apply that to what you're doing off the field, and I think that stays with you. I think that lunatic or whatever, all of those things that are with you, being a gladiator, it stays with you, and I think it helps in your transition to what you're doing off the field once you're done. I would think anyway.
Yeah. There's always a balance, right? I mean, I woke up this morning at 6 a.m. and already went on my run. I already worked out. I already did everything while everybody is still sleeping. I think that part of the lunatic mentality will always remain. But at the same time, it's also finding a balance with it as well. I think I will always preach that the first time I heard that U.S. Soccer Scout give me those 4 selves, like that is something that I look back in my career, and I look back I look into now, and I see how important they are, and in every single way possible, of just understanding the discipline behind things, even in my my new job and my everything that we have, but it's also still finding a balance. And I think that that is what allows me to still travel and be with my girlfriend in times of important moments, and be with family here now. It's I still am able to grind and have that lunatic mentality, but have the balance of both worlds is extremely important.
Another handful of minutes with Greg Garza as he dodges mosquitoes in Dallas, Texas this morning on the Friday free kick. When it comes to I love it when we can get into the 4 selves, and I love it when we can spend time on all 4 of them. But let me ask you this: when it comes to your mentees and individuals of that particular age and the 4 selves, is there one of the selves that is normally the first one that they can check off when you watch the 4 selves go into younger people? Is there one of the 4 selves that is easier for them to jump into so they can attack 2, 3, and 4, or does it vary from individual to individual?
I think it is totally custom tailored. It is totally custom tailored to what that individual is. But if there is one that we focus on more, Parky and I have a webinar with a club coming in the next couple of weeks, and the one thing that the marketing company that we have now partnered with and that coach asked us to focus on, and they just asked us, what is the most sought subject within mentorship, and I said it's self-belief, it's confidence. Confidence is the most sought subject within every individual that I think we've worked with. Now, there are, I would probably say, like less than 5% of kids, and that's just a guess off the top of my head, that feel totally confident and want to focus on something else. But I think that self-belief is by far one of the most sought things from young individuals, and I think that's just because of the world that we live in today. I remember myself as a young boy being extremely confident, maybe a little bit too much when I was really young. But I feel like whenever I became a professional, that's when I think having those judgment and I think critical and criticism moments of others, I think probably made me kind of have those bouts of confidence, those up and down moments. But I think kids these days are already like, they feel so judged already. They feel so criticized in different ways, whether it be by parents, coaches, friends, social media. They're always looking, they're looking for likes, right? They're looking for views. They're looking for different things. And so I think that self-belief and confidence, that is my why towards why kids feel that's such a hard thing to come by. I don't think when we were kids we didn't have that issue. I didn't have too many people in my circle to really care about how I did, or what I did. Right, I had very few people in my circle that I really cared about what their judgment was of me, and I think today that circle is just so much bigger in kids' worlds today.
So then, with the idea of the lunatic mentality and confidence, let me ask it this way: does being confident help you in being a lunatic, or can being a lunatic help you become more confident? Does one play off of the other better in any direction, or is it a happy blend when you are a confident person and someone taps you on the shoulder and says, I know you can be a lunatic? Or if you're already a lunatic, then having that person put their arm around you and sit there and go, okay, you need to lay into that and be confident about being a lunatic. How do those two play to one another, do you think?
I think it is so much easier to be lunatic first to lead up to confidence. And that's what I always tell kids, right? And I guess that lunatic mentality, you can go into like self-discipline, right? Self-discipline leads to more confidence, in my personal opinion. It is not self-belief goes into self-discipline. Self-discipline leads to confidence. When you put in the work and when you are extremely disciplined and committed and dedicated and consistent with things, that in turn leads to feeling better about yourself. I think all kids should live by that, and I preach that. You know, you can't. You should be able to look back and say, okay, I did this, I checked this off the checklist, check this off the list today. I feel great. I feel like I can conquer today. More so than I feel confident I should be able to go do all these things. I think it works better the other way.
Did you make your bed this morning?
Not yet, but I will, because the kids are still sleeping in the bed. So
okay. I'm
on a little pull out with my youngest, and my older two are on the top. So yeah, that's the other room is my parents are. I tell people that I think I've told you before, they're professional eBayers. So the other room is their other room is their eBay office.
Professional eBayers. Okay.
They are professional eBayers. Yep. They're professional estate sale eBayers.
Wow.
Now that they're retired. That's all they do.
Wow.
Yeah. Every day is a different estate sale, and they find really cool artifacts and things that you could never imagine would sell on eBay, and they sell them on eBay.
Okay.
They haggle the price at the estate sale, and then do wonders with it on eBay, man. It's believe it or not, dude, you should see how many people are at these estate sales doing the exact same thing. You have to have an eye for it. There's a talent for it, I guess. My mom has a good eye for it.
So your mom's a lunatic when it comes to eBay?
That's all she does all day, man. She helps us administrate Beyond Goals mentoring, and she's a professional eBayer. She's all day on the computer, man. They get up and walk all of our dogs, 2 times a day. And then if she's not doing that, she's on the computer administrating Beyond Goals mentoring and being a professional eBayer.
All right. So what's going on with the Beyond Goals we need to know about?
Yeah, just hopefully we have some very exciting news. Just doing some things around with Atlanta and not Atlanta United, but Atlanta as a city, and working closely with a lot of kids who could use mentorship in their lives, and some kids that have nothing to do with soccer, but just really using the importance of holistical mentorship and guiding them the right way, providing them with access and opportunity. So that's something that we have in the works right now, and a project that we have going on leading up into 2026, because I know I can't say the name of what's going to happen in 2026, but yeah. But yeah, that's obviously a huge project that we have going on right now, and continuously trying to grow. I guess I would say if anybody would be interested in helping that project launch, obviously it is done from a nonprofit viewpoint. So it's a 2-year project, and it's going to be something that is pretty special.
as always, and it's great to see how Beyond Goals continues to grow, and we're looking forward to the world coming to chase after a cup in 2026. A bunch of different countries coming here to this one to see who's going to be the best in the world. As always, my friend, get out of the mosquitoes and get back inside and go drink your coffee. Great to see you, my friend.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate it. Always good to see you, bud.
All right, Greg Garza, Beyond Goals Mentoring at BG Mentoring on the Twitters, and yeah, we can't say things like, we can mention that it's a tournament, and we can mention that the world is involved, and we can mention that you're like chasing after a cup, those kinds of things. So that we can say, but it's been really cool to catch up with Greg and Michael Parkhurst every single Friday, that they're not globetrotting, and that they can sit there and travel the planet and talk to us about mentoring and all that kind of stuff. Scott Wells, head coach of Asheville City, coming up here in just a little bit, where we can discuss what's going on in USL League Two. And I think my first question for him is going to be, are you in a hotel room? Are you in Virginia? Where are you? And where are preps, basically? And so I think that's probably the first question that we have. So let me see if we can battle connections and things like that. There he is. So Scott, where are you? Are you in a hotel room? Are you in a lobby someplace? Where are you?
Yeah, I am. I'm in the hotel lobby here in Newport News, Virginia. We're about 10 minutes away from Lion Bridges Stadium. So CNU, which is a lovely campus, absolutely lovely Division 3 program. So happy to be on. I appreciate all your coverage through the season.
Yeah. 10 minutes away from Christopher Newport, 10 minutes away from more steps in chasing after the title in USL League Two. So since the last time you were on with us, what has the sprint been like going, 2 days rest, you got to win. It's wash the jerseys, make sure everything's good to go. What's the sprint been like here in the playoffs so far?
I mean, I feel like we're doing a test run of the 21st century model right now, to be honest with you. It seems a while ago since me and you spoke. But yeah, things have gone really well. The staff and the organization have just been relentless and just done everything possible to make sure that we can focus and we can win games. And we've had a lot of success, some close games as well, but we've had a lot of experience leading up till today. So we're hoping that that's going to stand us in good stead moving forward today.
For someone who hasn't had the chance to see you guys play, and I know that you try to make sure that you ban folks from looking at the power rankings on the USL League Two website. You sit there and you go, that's not something that you're supposed to see. Don't go there. What has it been like, and who do folks naturally gravitate toward when they're looking there at Asheville City and you guys right now top of the power rankings in USL League Two? Who are some of the stars and studs that folks are gravitating toward this season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we spoke about Simon Carlson, who's our captain, who has continued to do the same things that we spoke about last time. Sebastian Tregarfen is one that has really been such a standout play for us and is a massive reason why we're sitting in this position right now. An NAIA player at Lindsay Wilson, which I think is important to point out. We have a lot of players at Division 1 level that have had a lot of coverage prior to coming to Asheville, but the Lindsay boys, Michael Rempel, Sebastian Tregarfen, and Mao Wong have been fantastic for us. We re-recruited a little bit midway through as well, so we brought in Dante Huckabee and Sergio Navarro from West Virginia University, and then we just picked up APFC's striker just after they were beaten by Hickory, Niall Reed-Stevens. So some really promising talent that I've been lucky enough to work with this summer.
When you integrate, obviously you're trying to continue to make sure that your roster is as best as it can be week in and week out when you're there in USL League Two chasing a title. How difficult is it to find a player that you think will help, but having them integrate into what you're looking to do on the field and have them mesh as close to immediately as possible? How tough is that?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult because, when you bring the players in May, you're all on the same page, so it's a preseason feel. I'm able to kind of treat every player the same in terms of trying to build a relationship with them. So then when we do bring new players in, I'm trying to split time between continuing the culture of what we've got going on and continuing the success, but also have a mini pre-season with some of these other players, and trying to get them integrated as soon as possible. So speaking to my leadership committee, letting them know who's arriving, when they're arriving, making sure they're not just going straight back to their host family or the apartment. Maybe it's a coffee with the captains, maybe there's a player or two that we feel would mesh really well with them from a characteristic standpoint. So we just do as much as we can from a man management point there to get them up to speed. But when they come in late on, with the facilities that we've been able to have this season, with the success, with where we've been at, I think that every player has came in and been very privileged and extremely grateful for coming into a program like this to continue helping their career. So they've put their front foot forward as well, and they've met us in the middle. So we've been really, really lucky that we've brought in great characters this year.
Nashville City getting ready for Corpus Christi FC on the right-hand side of the bracket. Lionsbridge taking on Seacoast United. That is the right-hand side of the bracket as we're now down to the final 8 in USL League Two. When you're assembling a roster, are you the one that's having all the outbound phone calls? Are folks ringing you up at the beginning of the season, say, hey, I want to come and hang out with you because I like what's going on there at Asheville? What's the assembly like? Or is your phone ringing off the hook, or are you making outbound calls? How does this work?
I'm probably pestering way too many coaches throughout the college season. We all binge watch college soccer, as a fan, and obviously just it's exciting when you get to August, you get to go home and stick ESPN Plus on and watch so many games. So, I'm assembling my depth chart through the college season. We're obviously in a really good situation at Gardner-Webb right now where, we've established our team. So, now it's a case of just making mental notes and writing down players that may want to come in and play for us in the summer. And so that it's been a challenge. But in 2022, when I first arrived, I really was having to pester a lot of coaches and really try and give them an idea of what I wanted to do here. At this point right now, it's been a lot more receptive. Players and coaches do want to come here. So when you have initial conversations, they know who we are. We have a target on our back at this point. So it's been a little bit easier to recruit as the years have gone on. But of course, the college coaches don't really want to be having USL 2 conversations, as they're entering a conference tournament. But that won't stop me calling them. I can assure you of that.
Well, and at the same time, you mentioned you with Gardner-Webb and the collegiate relationships that are there. And then at the same time, you mentioned Lindsey Wilson, who is Mid-South NAIA. I mean, you're going from one end of the spectrum to the other. You're going D1, D2, D3, NAIA. You're catching it from all different angles here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very lucky, really, in my career. I started in the NAIA with the University of Rio Grande, where we won a national championship, and then obviously moved over to University of Charleston, where we won a national championship. So I'm a massive advocate for the NAIA in Division 2. And when I was at Rio, Lindsey Wilson were an absolute powerhouse, and they still continue to be. And some of the recruiting they've been able to do, has been great. So, I took a trip there, and I'll continue to take a trip there to see those players and help publicize them, because let's be honest, politically, those guys are not getting the same coverage as a lot of the Division 1 players, and when they go back to Lindsey Wilson, will they be tracked as much by some of the scouts as some of the Division 1 players? Probably not. And again, that's one of my obligations as a USL 2 coach, to put them on the platform for the USL 1, the USL Championship, and the MLS Next. I said this on a previous podcast. We lost Rodrigo Robles halfway through the season. He signed a pro at Greenfield Triumph. That's absolutely hurt Asheville City. There's no question about it. But that was the right thing to do. That's why Rodrigo trusted the club, and he trusted me, is to be able to put him and project him into the pros. So, we've got some of the Lindsey boys. Sebastian Tregarfen has a lot of coverage right now from some of the scouts, some of the pro coaches. And it's an extremely rewarding job when it comes to stuff like that.
All right, scouting report for Corpus Christi. How much tape have you watched? What do you see in them, other than the fact that they got to travel a lot more than you did to get to Lionsbridge?
Yeah, well, obviously they played against Tennessee Soccer Club, and that was, in the opening round. So, we were able to watch that game. And one thing that we noticed is that they are relentless. They don't give up. I think there was 3 goals in the last 6 minutes of the regular time against Tennessee. And at times it looked like Tennessee had clinched it, but they didn't give up. So their mentality is extremely impressive across the board. Even the players that were coming off the bench, their work rate out of possession was very, very impressive. And they do have an extremely decent front three. So we're aware of them. We've done a lot of research on them. We've sat down with our defenders and kind of gone through some video on them. But it's playoff football at this point. It's going to be whoever wants it the most. Tactically we can set up and continue to keep doing our identity. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to those little small margins, those little small moments of how bad we want it over them at this point.
What did you learn about yourself in the wins over Nona and Brave to get you to this point, do you think? So what do you think you learned about yourself in the wins against Nona and Brave to get you to this point with Corpus Christi?
A massive amount of resilience for sure. I mean, Nona are not a first-round team. They were fantastic. They have a really, really good team. And I think if you look across the weekend, unfortunately for the club, we got an opportunity to host, but we didn't really host. We had to change venues. There was lightning delays. And so, my job over the weekend was trying to make sure that our group was still engaged and they didn't allow the lightning or the change of venues or the change of kickoff times to be a reason why we lost a game. So I think the biggest part of the adversity was just trying to get those guys to stay on board and continue to play the same way they have all season. And they did. I mean, they really did. We came out against Nona. It was 1-0. It was a very close game in the first half, and we put it to bed in the second half. And then, of course, Villages, who took care of us last year, it was a huge, huge game. We go 1-0 down. Then we have a 3.5-hour break during the lightning delay. That's lingering on the players, right? I go down to the pavilion where we were staying during the lightning break, and I've never seen the atmosphere so depleted at that point. So my main job there was just kind of getting through as many individuals as possible, making sure, hey, there's 60 minutes left here. We've got plenty of time. And then, I started to see a massive shift from our leadership group, and the way that the boys kind of came back on the field was very, very impressive. So we've been through, especially last weekend, all the adversity we needed to be prepared for this moment today.
All right, go get the rest of the breakfast buffet there at the hotel. You probably have another 18 minutes. Good luck against Corpus Christi. Thanks for dropping by on a match day. Good luck tonight. Be safe. Have a good weekend. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate you. Take care.
All right, that's Scott Wells, head coach at Asheville City. He's in a hotel, and he's in Newport News, Virginia. They're getting ready for their right-hand side of the bracket in USL League Two. It is them and Corpus Christi. It's Lionsbridge and Seacoast United. That is the right-hand side at Lionsbridge. Left-hand side, Project 510 and FC Tucson, Flint City and Peoria City. Flint City, Peoria City, that's going to be a fun one. They're on the left-hand side. We'll have our USL League Two preview coming up later today on the network, so keep an ear out for that. Jarrett's here, and Jarrett's going to be spending the rest of the time with us. We might be able to scramble Jason here at some point to kind of put a bow on the week. But I played Jarrett the sound from the hastily arranged Canada Soccer CEO Kevin Blue Zoom from the hotel in Saint Etienne press conference, 5-paragraph essay statement kind of thing. And I mentioned at the beginning of the show in hour number one, if you have more than one reporter on a byline, you're in trouble. If you have a high-profile investigative reporter with a byline and he writes a version of War and Peace on what's wrong, you're in trouble. Canada Soccer is in about 9 feet worth of ish right now. And this morning it was divulged that apparently the drone usage was so prevalent that there's the possibility of a link to the men's side and Copa America that Jesse Marsh has denounced as a part of the whole thing. But Canada Soccer, what in the blue hell are you doing is basically the question here.
Wait, so I'm sorry, I'm just catching up with this. Like that accusations that or theories that they may have the men's side was using it during Copa?
Yeah. Sounds like, from Joe Callahan. It sounds from Kevin Blue. Joe Callahan says it sounds like drone usage was such a habit that an MNT staff member who Jesse Marsh inherited just went ahead and attempted to spy on Copa America opposition as a matter of course. Marsh denounced it. And so that was from the Kevin Blue press this morning.
Feels very messy for Jesse.
That's
the case.
It's messy for Jesse.
But no pun intended. But like, Jesus, that's Well, because I know they sent the women's coach home from the Olympics, which whoopty shit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's literally the bare minimum you had to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so now we're keeping an eye out for that. Like I said, we played a little bit of Kevin Blue's hastily arranged thing from this morning. Revealed they used drones to attempt to spy on opponents at major events. Blue said he received new internal information Thursday. And this is from Mark Pulio at the Athletic/New York Times. New internal information Thursday, which led him to consider the recent spying attempts have not been isolated incidents. Quote, the more I learn about this specific matter, the more concerned I get about a potential long-term, deeply embedded systemic culture of this type of thing occurring, which is obviously completely unacceptable. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go finish. I thought you were done. I'm sorry. Go finish.
Quote, I've been receiving a lot of anecdotal feedback about the history of the issue as it relates to both programs, as it relates to the current situation on the men's team. I'm aware of an instance of attempted drone usage during Copa America. My current understanding is the fact pattern of that instance is significantly different than what occurred here, especially as it relates to the potential impact on competitive integrity. Blue went on to say Canada Soccer is doing an internal review, insisted the players themselves have not been involved in any unethical behavior, and argued the organization's self-punishments should be seen as sufficient.
That's debatable, because anytime an organization, and not just in this one, anytime an organization self-punishes, yeah, it whatever it is, it's generally safe to kind of side-eye it.
Yeah.
As they're slapping themselves. It's kind of like tickling yourself. Like, you can only do so much. You can't really do it yourself.
Yeah, it's like the older brother to the younger brother. Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
So I do have a question. Has anyone talked to John Herdman?
Yes, and that was from that article. As a matter of fact, someone tried to reach out to Herdman. Let me rephrase. Someone has attempted to reach out to Herdman. Did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So the Athletic/New York Times is chasing after Herdman. Marsh did not immediately respond to a request for comment as well. According to Kevin Blue, Jesse Marsh learned about the spying attempts after the fact.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the timeline is where it's gonna get a little sticky for Jesse Marsh. It's not me calling him a liar straight out the gate at all. But the timeline's going to matter a lot about Jesse and about what they did or did not do. This whole thing is going to be very messy, and I can't imagine, like, you remember the scene in Airplane where the woman's hysterical on the plane and everybody's just lined up to just beat the dog out of her?
Yeah.
Part of me imagines you have FIFA, CONCACAF, CONMEBOL, and individual clubs lined up in some order resembling that, lined up to get a piece of Canada. If this is wider than, even if it is just the women's side and like isolated stuff on the men's side, they're going to be lined up to take a piece out of Canada, because you can't be doing this. And yeah, it's going to be Canada. You know what? On the other hand, God bless you, Canada, for finally being the heels we all need. CONCACAF needed new heels because Mexico is too busy. Is basically too busy playing Russian roulette on their foot with a 9mm semi-automatic.
Yeah.
Whereas you have kind of embraced the heel roll here. Thank you, Canada. Now get your house together. Get your house in order. Dude, I don't know how you keep the women's coach.
No.
I don't know how.
No.
Like, if it, I guess this is the thing. Is like, if you chose not to fire her, who is that? And this is maybe a question for Jason, if he's able to be summoned. I'm working on the summoning circles now. I have to find candles.
Yes.
This is maybe a question for him, because he knows more about the way the federations work than I do. Who would that fall to? If they're like, we suspended her, she's fine, she's going to come back. Like, who gets to overrule that? Or is the Federation? Does the Federation have sovereignty in this situation? Because if they don't fire her, holy hell, man. And I, with some of the stuff that came out yesterday, I also felt vindicated with the idea of like people. I think it was I can't remember if it was that interview or one of the other ones they talked about. Like people were doing this, but they were afraid to say something.
Mm-hmm. It was in the Westhead piece.
Yeah. Canada, it sounds like you have a really toxic situation on your hands that you need to clean out. And it's not, of course, it's not everyone in the country. It's probably not even everyone in the Federation. But it sounds like you got to clean some toxic people out of there. And look, every Federation is probably going to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yours just happened to like walk out on stage right as the curtain was open and the spotlight was on. And your toxic ones decided to take center stage and go out there and start doing a vaudeville act.
Yep. From the Westhead piece at tsn.ca, some staff and contractors were told the filming was part of their jobs and that they could lose their positions with the Federation if they did not go along with the demands, one of the sources said in a series of interviews with TSN on Wednesday and Thursday. Quote, in a couple of scenarios, people have been pushed and have been told, quote, you have to give 110%, and this is part of the job. So if you don't feel comfortable with doing this, you do not have a place on the team, the source said. It's not something that's talked about, and it's not something there are a lot of text messages about because of how sensitive this is. Some of the people who have had to do the filming or review the filming have said to a few staff members how uncomfortable it was for them. One of the sources said the spying included a Team Canada coach filming 2 of Japan's closed-door training sessions during the 21 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Canada tied Japan.
You got a stripper gold medal.
Yeah.
I know Bart, I think, said, I don't know if Bart said it tongue-in-cheek. I don't know if Bart's here this morning. I don't know if Bart said it tongue-in-cheek or not. If you were doing this in the 21 games, go back and strip their medal.
Mm-hmm.
We've stripped past medals. There's precedent for it.
Yeah.
If they're illegally spying on teams' trainings and it goes back to the 21 games that had quote unquote 2020 Olympics, strip their medals. It sucks for the players, but it sucks for the players, but there's a precedent for it. And if the Federation's going to be doing this crap, you have to set an example for it. You have to set an example with the idea that it sucks for the players, because I know the reports are the players were not doing this. The players aren't running the drones. The players aren't demanding that you do this. It sounds like the players just show up and play with the game plan they're given. Canada's women's team has always been good. Canada's men's team is in a very good era. And it would suck to punish players and take away medals, but you have to punish appropriately in these situations, because otherwise, if the punishment isn't enough, it's kind of like Federal Trade Commission stuff, where a large company commits awful invasion of privacy violations, breaks laws, monopolistic practices, that sort of thing.
Yep.
A lot of times do it because the fine, no matter what the fine is, it's less than the revenue they got doing it. So you have to make you have to punish them greater than the cost. You have to make the punishment greater than the cost of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So if they did this in the 21 games, strip the medal out.
The source told Westhead, quote, it was a little bit tricky during that time, given the fact that we were under a lot more restrictions, but there were ways to kind of sneak out of the hotel. Yeah. There you go. I was about to ask about sneaking out. Go. Yeah, sneak out of the hotel without people knowing. In Tokyo, a lot of the facilities were a little bit more open, so in some cases you could see from behind bushes or behind fences or behind trees. It wasn't that complicated because they didn't have the big mesh walls, so as long as you were close enough to the facility, you're able to see if you're in a hidden location. The source said they weren't aware if spying occurred in other games during those Olympics. 2 years after Tokyo, a Canada soccer contractor who was scheduled to travel to Australia for the World Cup was told their responsibilities would include trying to record training sessions of opposing teams. When the contractor said they wouldn't agree to do that, their trip was canceled, and a Canada soccer staff member flew there in their place to do the recording. The source told Westhead TSN has reviewed text message correspondence of a women's national team coach discussing secret filming of their opponents' training sessions ahead of games in 2022 against Costa Rica, South Korea, and Trinidad. One of the sources said the strategy for filming opposing teams' practices was relatively easy because Canada Soccer staff knew where they were practicing and what hotels they were staying in.
So you tried to hire out a third party to do it, which would have given you some sort of elbow room as a sense of, I guess maybe if they get caught, we can say, oh, this third party was just completely out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But they wouldn't do it. So then you hired a staffer, which eliminates your ability to say, this person's completely out of pocket. I do have a question though, because let's bring this back to like Pony Express kind of stuff, John.
Sure. Yeah.
I wonder if other countries are doing this. Like, I feel like that's kind of the obvious question here. Is like, are other countries doing this? And if they are, is Canada just like ham-fisted and incapable of not getting caught? I guess that's my question. Like, did Canada like just kind of Mr. Magoo their way into getting caught? Are other countries doing this, or is Canada kind of taking this prep to like the next level? Which but no one. Bev obviously doesn't have the swagger of Marcelo Bielsa to get popped for spying and then sit at the press conference and tell you everything about the other club he's about to
Here's
play.
your PowerPoint presentation on why we didn't need the drone.
Yeah.
This is spying, yeah.
Obviously doesn't have that amount of swagger, which look, Marcelo Bielsa has like terminal levels of swagger and confidence. So there's that. But yeah, man, this is roll up a newspaper and pop Canada over the nose with it, because you got to do something with it.
Well, but then to your point, and to take the Pony Excess example forward, does Canada then turn into Sean Stopprich and start narking on other folks?
That would be hilarious. I think Canada has to get its own house in order first, because if you have staffers who are coming in at whistleblower status now, and you end up in a situation where different people start whistleblowing different things, you got more to clean up than maybe you bargained for, Canada. Man, whatever he knew or didn't know, man, Jesse Marsh gonna have a time of it now. Like, he's still got a talented roster. They'll still play hard. They're constructed really well when they call people in to do what he wants to do. But Jesus, Jesse. I don't want to hear comments about the U.S. national team now. You got your hands full. Especially a U.S. national team job that you're not going to get after you went and like torched the bridge. So I don't want to hear about like Jesse Marsh and the U.S. national team. Like, Jesse threw a bit of a fit and torched that bridge with the current people in charge. I don't know if he torched it permanently or if new people and time heals wounds, but like the bridge is going up in flames right now. And I don't want to hear Jesse talk about the U.S. national team, because he got his own things to deal with here in Canada, and he's going to have his own mess to clean up. Because whether or not he knew about all this, whether or not he signed off on it, it's still going to reflect on him. And I'm inclined to think that I'd be interested to know what they did or didn't do at Copa, because like I said yesterday, soccer coaches are insane. They are clinically insane human beings, not unlike football coaches. I will not really ever believe a coach if they say, well, I had no idea that was happening. Oh, you're all unhinged. You are all like, again, you're Batman villains with worse marketing and not crazy costumes, because you know what's happening. You're not running a club, and you're sure as hell not coaching for the national team without, especially Jesse taking that job in Canada, being in the shape it was in before. There's no way you don't know everything that's going on. So maybe you didn't do it in Copa. Maybe he knew about it and said, hey, let's not do that, which great if so, Jesse. But yeah, man, Same thing with that. But like, I didn't know this was happening. Oh, kiss my ass.
Kevin Blue about Jesse Marsh, quote, he explained to me that he denounced it immediately and forcefully and has communicated that to his staff, both the existing staff and the staff that were from previous coaching staffs that are still with us, Blue said Friday.
Good. I think another step would be like, and that's a good first step, is you gotta, and this is something that not just Jesse Marsh would be responsible for doing, but also Canada is, you're going to have to clean up so much of the toxicity within that program, because if people felt like they had to do it or else they were going to get their careers derailed in that industry in Canada, then that's not just Jesse denouncing something. That is like top down. You need to take this to, like, I don't know, some damn spa, wherever you can take your national team, entire federation, not just the team, the whole damn federation, to a spa and find a way to cleanse out the toxicity. And that is a slow process. You don't do that overnight.
Take him to PEI for a round of golf. Hi, Jason.
Hey, what's going on?
We're talking about Canada.
You're talking about Canada soccer.
Yeah, have fun with that. Kind of a mess these days, huh?
Well, yeah, considering Kevin Blue felt compelled this morning, the CEO of Canada Soccer, to, with 30 minutes notice, call a hastily put together press conference from his hotel room in Saint-Etienne and explain.
30-minute hastily thrown together press conferences are always fun.
Yeah.
They always go really, really well. You know,
Yeah.
they're
Nothing
always
bad
so buttoned up and really clean up whatever the problem is.
There's never a problem that becomes worse or a new problem that comes out of them, ever.
Yeah. And so with all of the discussion that we've had, we've kind of had to add a second lane of traffic here, where Kevin Blue mentions and confirmed that Jesse Marsh was aware of drone usage at the Copa America, at least after the fact of the attempt for the Canadian men's national team in the tournament. So we got
that's new. Good times.
We got that from Kevin Blue this morning. But yes, Jesse denounced it immediately when he apparently was told about it. But Kevin Blue broke that this morning in his press conference.
I do have one question, and we were talking about it down here on our shoot. I'll tell you a little bit behind the scenes of what we're working on down here in Peachtree City. But we were talking about a certain someone who is now the head coach with Toronto FC.
Yes.
Who previously oversaw the women's program and then oversaw the men's program and was kind of there for almost all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And, have any questions been asked about that?
Yeah. They're chasing him. He has been asked to comment, and he has yet to do so.
I don't think that's going to help him very much. I think Bev Priestman tried that line, and it didn't go very well. So.
He just kind of ignored the question and said the boilerplate apology. And
you might need to get out in front of that one, or just get ready to find, I don't know, potentially something else to do.
Yeah.
Because this started when he was in charge of the women's program, and then it sounds like it continued when he went to the men's program. And it's not saying that it was his idea. There's no way to know that, but it's worth a question. And it's then to follow it up, does his current employer know about this, and do they subscribe to these potential tactics? Like, it's fascinating because this started and we all thought, like, okay, this is an isolated thing. This is kind of crazy. Well, it's not anymore.
No.
And it crosses multiple lanes of Canadian soccer. And, I think one important thing here, and it has to be stressed, this is awful for the players because they had no choice in this. Mm-hmm. They did not ask for it. And now every result that they have earned, whether their coaching staff had additional information or didn't, because sometimes you can try to do these things and you can watch a session that you learn nothing from. But every result, since you go back to whenever the earliest instance of this being reported on, every result is going to be questioned. And that's not fair to the players who have worked so hard to make the majority of those results. Even if a coaching staff has information, and this doesn't absolve them of anything, because this is completely horrible that this has happened. But any time any coaching staff that would have this kind of information and they pass it on to their players, the players still have to execute. The players have to go and win these games. And now every win is going to be questioned. And that's a shame for those players on both programs.
Yeah, and we broached that a bit before you jumped on, Jason, in that, look, this was happening at the 2020 Olympics.
Yeah.
And while I think it sucks for the players, like if you're talking about, for me, you're talking about stripping medals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not fair
Yes,
to the players.
you have to.
But you have to.
You have to think about that.
Like we talked about, like it's not fair to the players, but you have to make the punishment intense enough to deter future activities. And you need to, if the reports are true and that they were doing this, they tried to get a third party to do it. He wouldn't do it, so they used a staffer to do it at the Olympics, allegedly. If that's what's happening, you gotta strip medals.
Yeah, you have to start considering that. This is going to be a massive story for a while, and there's we're only scratching the surface of what it's going to turn into.
We did raise the John Herdman question this morning. I'm very eager to hear John Herdman's opinions on this. And John Herdman has had a much more colorful year than I think he intended, especially with the New York City stuff earlier this season, accusing a player of assault. And then nothing, basically, MLS coming out and saying, hey, we can't prove any of this. We can't disprove any of it. Just everyone, just grow up, please. All of you just grow up.
Yeah, all I will say when it comes to that is you guys have heard about our friend Karma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens. I mean, this seems like something that was going on during his time in charge of both programs. I remember it, and I think it got washed away and everything, and full credit to Gonzalo Pineda for not making an issue of it. But I watched John Herdman completely disrespect Gonzalo after the match in Toronto, where he would not go to shake his hand. And it's very rare that you see a coach at this level act in that way, where it's blatant. And it says a lot. And all of these other things combining add a lot to it. And it's not going to go well for Toronto and for John Herdman at this point. It can't. And I'll be very curious to see what that timeline ends up looking like.
Yeah, the Westhead piece has a section in it. Staff and contractors connected to the men's national team have also filmed the closed training sessions of competitors, one of the sources told TSN, adding that Canada used a drone to record a U.S. training session before a November 15, 2019 match in Florida that the U.S. won 4-1. 2 years later, Honduras stopped a training session in Toronto during World Cup qualifiers after someone spotted a drone overhead. Herdman at the time, quote, I'd imagine there's probably a lot of people in Canada that fly drones, I'm sure. And
I saw that quote, and that's going to end up really coming back to get him.
Yeah.
That's a horrendous response to this.
Yeah. And when a big team like Honduras turn up, I'm sure people are probably interested in
a big team like Honduras.
Yeah, when they come into our country. So I know for sure we won't be heading into people's countries too early, because with drones these days, people can obviously capture footage. You've got to be really careful. So, yeah, you've got to be careful in CONCACAF. It's a tricky place, end quote.
Good luck, Mr. Herdman. I think you're going to need it.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm using a drone at a Honduras game is to get more footage of my large adult son, Albert Delis.
Yes.
That's pretty much the beginning and end of it. Oh, my God. Hey, we have Leagues Cup coming up.
Yeah, we do.
Like tonight.
I know.
Yes, it's going to happen. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be yelling on the radio.
Just yelling at Christian Benteke.
Probably. That's what I do.
But I assumed that my recommendation was not taken, which was to place Dion and Efra and then bring down Noble Okello and just try and bury Christian Benteke and tall people.
Noble Okello is not part of the roster, so your recommendation was probably not heard, but definitely not followed.
It's probably for the best. I just, like I said,
it's definitely for the best. Yes.
Just We turned it into an I quit match.
Yeah. You don't want that, but you do have to deal with Christian Benteke in the air, and that's going to really have a big hand in deciding how this game goes. And not many teams in the league over the past 2 years have dealt with Christian Benteke well in the air. You're talking about a player who, these numbers haven't been taken since the beginning of league history, but you're talking about the best player in the air in the league in terms of winning aerial duels in its short history of recording aerial duels. Like, it's crazy. And it's such a crazy win percentage that it affects the game. So it gives DC a weapon that they use. And they use it in a variety of ways. And I'll give Troy Lesane a lot of credit in kind of evolving how DC plays from just purely a bomb it forward and start there. They do that, and they always have that option, but they do a good job of building up the play and creating opportunities to pick out where he is and get him into dangerous spots. So that's what Atlanta's got to deal with tonight and find a way to manage that.
I know that fans have a tendency to gravitate toward Benteke when you're looking at DC, but who have been the other benefactors of Benteke doing what he has been able to do up front for DC this year?
Oh, I think you're seeing Stroud, especially as a player with 8 assists this year, as somebody who has found a way to bolster their game by feeding the big man up top in a variety of ways. And we saw it against Atlanta. Stroud was great against Atlanta in terms of dealing with finding that space and then finding Christian Benteke. So he's one. Aaron Herrera is another one who I think is having a great year as a right back. And when you have that kind of target inside the 18, becomes really valuable to have players who can either get wide like Stroud and get into dangerous spots and serve up great opportunities, or fullbacks like Herrera who can get forward and create good opportunities from the width.
Jarrett, for Jason, go for it.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask a question. This is the kind of thing we would ask, like in football.
Sorry, the drum line is chasing me here at Stars Mill.
No, it's fine. This is the kind of question I would ask about in college football, so let's ask it here. You're seeing the same team for the third time in a couple of months. Like, it seems like it's tough to surprise people at that point. You generally know what each other are. So how do you factor in wrinkles? How do you factor in, okay, we're just going to have to go play our game better than they play their game?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do because I think both of these teams, they are who they are. And I think DC, maybe more than Atlanta, has limitations in what they can do differently. Like, I don't think DC tries to do anything differently in this game. I think they come in and they play their game and they expect to have that be successful as it was last time here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think Atlanta's got more flexibility in what they can do. And it's going to be down to Rob Valentino and his staff to find that. I think you've seen a couple different looks from Valentino in his 9 games in charge. You've seen the 4-3-3. You've seen the 5-2-3 that is a lot like a 3-4-3 at times. I wasn't lying about the drum line chasing me. They're walking by right now.
We'll get into that in a second.
They're walking by right now, so I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah.
I think Atlanta's got to find a way to be dangerous in different ways, and you have an individual level of talent, in my opinion, on the Atlanta side that can bridge that gap a bit. So guys like Sabo Lobjanidze, Sean De Silva, you want to get them into 1v1s and create some of those unpredictable moments that DC isn't going to be able to deal with as well. But I'm just curious to see what shape it's going to be. Do you add the extra center back to try to double team Benteke at times and lose a player higher up the field? Or do you go with a line of 4, 2 center backs, more traditional, and you just have to win your duels against Benteke? I'll be curious to see which option Rob Valentino and his staff opt for.
It sounds like you're playing college football 2025 right now.
I am not. I am here at Stars Mill High School. I know. We are doing a shoot, and we did not know that band camp was going on this week. And so we moved from the stadium where we were doing the shoot because as we arrived, tubas showed up, and we knew that would be a problem. And we moved up to the practice field further up on the campus, and we're like, okay, cool. Well, then we realized that the drums were not down on the field yet, and they started working, and then they marched down to the field, and now they just marched back. So our shoot has been delayed a little bit. I'm on the other end of the field from the shoot, and I'll go ahead and give you guys a little bit of a
I was going
behind
to
the
say,
scenes.
what can you divulge here, sir?
I'll give you a tease of what's going on. We have Sophia Cupertino taking pictures all behind the scenes of what we're working on here. Nick Alifi is our executive producer on said shoot. Madison Cruz is our talent, and there's an interview with a player, and I'll let you guys just figure out the dots of why we would be at Stars Mill and that player. But it's going to be a cool feature that we'll have coming up in the next couple weeks on the SDH network as we start to do more of these sorts of network things that are really cool, and I hope are well received, and I hope we can continue to grow and tell more stories like this, in addition to laughing about John Herdman's future being very cloudy.
God. We kind of were discussing what's going on with the Canadian Olympic team. So far, the men had their problems with friends, and the women took care of business and started that off with the trend spin out over in Paris. What have you looked at from the first matches on the men's and women's side?
The men weren't as bad as the result, and I don't know if the women were as good as the result. And that's okay. Like the men, you knew the first game was going to be a challenge. I thought they were good up until the opening goal, which came against the run of play. They nearly pulled it back level and went off the post on a header that, man, I thought John Tolkien had. And then you give it the second goal and you're in trouble. The women, great spell to get the goals that they did when they got them. Then they get the red card and the game kind of peters out. So it works out really well on the women's side that you don't overextend yourselves in that game. You get a very comfortable result, but they've got to continually improve. And I think that's going to be a process with Emma Hayes. Like, it's not going to be as good as it will be later today. It shouldn't be. It's going to evolve. It's going to develop. And I'm excited with the pieces that we're seeing develop. I'm excited to see where this is going.
What with this Olympic setup, aside from the U.S., will we be watching Canada, who is in the middle of a circus of their own creation?
Mm-hmm.
Who else? What other countries are you looking forward to watching at this Olympics?
On the women's side, Spain, I just love the way that they play. And the game with Japan was amazing, as you would expect. That Japanese team is a lot of fun to watch as well. Aitana Bonmati is one of the best players in the world, male or female. She's just a joy to watch. On the men's side, Argentina, obviously want to see how they bounce back from their chaos in game one. They might pull another VAR review today and make the teams go back out and deal with it again.
We haven't gotten into that with you.
Yeah. Maybe they'll call them out of their hotel rooms and make them dress again and go do that. Craziness. I mean, if everybody wants to yell and point at the U.S. for organizing Copa America, which they didn't, that was CONMEBOL. Mm-hmm. But if everybody wants to point and blame people, nothing looked as ridiculous as the end of that game on multiple levels, whether it's people rushing onto the field, whether it's things being thrown at the Argentine players, whether it's then the VAR, I guess, falling asleep and waking up and saying, oh, I should probably look at this. Oh, yeah, let's get the players back out of the locker room. Yeah, just horrendous all the way around. It was offside. And the fact that you can't get there quicker than that, and I know there were mitigating circumstances that if it's stadium control, if it's security, if it's the IOC, if whatever it is, the fact that all that happened is absurd. Like, absurd on so many different levels. But on the men's side, I want to see how Argentina bounce back. This is a team that historically, over the past few tournaments, with Copa America being the exception, they've lost their opening game and come back to do well. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how this group does. But I'm also really curious to see how the Dominican Republic do. This is a team that's never been here. This is a CONCACAF team that we've never really talked about in terms of World Cup qualification and what things could look like. And they qualified with their U20s to get to this stage. It's really exciting. And I know people get hung up on like Nations League and CONCACAF doesn't help the U.S. and Mexico. And it doesn't help them as much as some other competitions could, like playing in Copa Americas. But the Nations League and all the different things that CONCACAF has done has absolutely helped your countries like the Dominican Republic. And I think it's amazing. It's just an incredible story, and I really hope they do well.
Jason hanging out here with us to put a bow on the week here. We had Darin van Tassell on earlier to talk about what happened with Nick Akoto, and Nick Akoto creating Burton Albion fans now in Statesboro. Big day for League One, big day for Tormenta, where you've got teams in the pyramids overseas knocking on your door and wanting to bring your talent back to England to start the season.
Yeah, I'm going to end on this one before I get back and play the role of production assistant.
There you go.
It's awesome, and it's what we've talked about with all of these other teams being important. You know, it's very cool that in the same week where it starts with Caleb Wiley going to Chelsea and the announcement of that and how important it is for kids growing up in the Atlanta area to see that's what my life can be. That's what I can aspire to, because previous generations didn't have that. You didn't think there was a future in the game like that. You thought maybe college, maybe. And that wasn't even feasible for most of us. And I say us because that wasn't something that I considered. That wasn't something that I thought as I was a kid growing up playing. You know, you had silverbacks, you had other things that came up, but it was never an 8-figure transfer deal going to one of the biggest clubs in the world. That was just not on anybody's radar growing up around here. So then to start there, to then end with a record transfer for USL League One, which is going to get surpassed hopefully very soon. And to see a player who started their career in Statesboro and go to England and play, you know, in one of the top divisions and get an opportunity to carry that flag of Tormenta and honestly the state of Georgia and just everything that it can be, it's so cool. It's so cool to see that, all right, there are different pathways to reaching your ultimate success in the game. And everybody's got different levels. Everybody's got different capabilities. Everybody's got different ceilings for what that can be. And now there are multiple opportunities out there to get to whatever your ceiling is. And it's just amazing to see. It's been a very cool week for soccer in the state of Georgia, and there's going to be plenty more weeks like this to come.
Broadcast plans are very busy across the board for a lot of us this weekend on a bunch of different fronts.
Yep. Tonight, pregame coverage starts at 7 o'clock. Five Stripes Countdown. Abe Gordon, Garrett Chapman will get you started on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Kickoff at 8:10 for Atlanta United and DC United. Leagues Cup Game 1. Full-time report after, as always. You can hear everything after the game as well. Take you on your ride home. And then a lot of us will be heading over to Huntsville tomorrow for Atlanta United 2 and Huntsville City, MLS Next Pro. Hopefully a little bit extra pregame coverage since we will have almost a full crew over in Huntsville for this. And we will have postgame coverage as well, hopefully with lots of cool audio, video content coming your way on the SDH network.
Okay, go continue being a production assistant.
Yes, I don't want Nick to yell at me.
No, that'd be bad. We'll see you soon.
See ya.
All right, that's Jason. And Jason is on a shoot for a story that we're piecing together at Stars Mill about what's going on with one of the national teams and part of their efforts. So very, very cool stuff that's going to be on the network fairly soon. More from the Canada Soccer press conference this morning. And like I said, do we call Zooms officially press conferences?
Technically they are. Let's just do it.
Okay, so it's so more from the presser this morning with Canada Soccer CEO Kevin Blue, where he was discussing a potential systemic ethical shortcoming. That's going to have to be on a T-shirt now. Systemic ethical shortcoming. It's like, I'm a systemic ethical shortcoming.
Is this kind of like when Will Smith's wife referred to it as an entanglement?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
It is. So he said, Kevin Blue said he has not considered a team withdrawal from the tournament, primarily because, quote, we feel like we've addressed the situation swiftly and significantly, end quote, to continue. It would be to the detriment of our players who've worked so hard and sacrificed quite a bit to be Olympians and have not engaged in unethical behavior. I will not consider us withdrawing on the basis of the fact that we support our players as Olympians and their right to be here and their right to compete. Earlier, COC, Canadian Olympic Committee CEO David Shoemaker, said Bev Priestman was likely aware drones were used to spy on the opposing team's training sessions in France. At Olympic House in Paris, he said, quote, one of the key pieces of information was the conclusion from Canada Soccer that she needed to be suspended based on their accumulation of facts. I've seen some of them, some of the information they have, and we've gathered some additional information ourselves that made me conclude that she was highly likely to have been aware of the incident here in Saint-Etienne. That sounds like us. When we sit there and we go, possibly, probably, maybe, perhaps. And we do it tongue-in-cheek. But the CEO of the COC, David Shoemaker, basically pieced together a couple of those words, highly likely to have been aware. I know he's covering his butt for legal fees, but still.
He is, but like, this is the thing about it is like, well, I know it's legalese, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just... it's such an exhausting amount of for me, it's like an exhausting amount of like disrespect to the people who are paying attention to this, like the viewer. Yeah. You know, like come on, we know we're not dumb. Don't treat us like we're dumb.
Well, I mean, it's,
but they're going to.
Well, yeah, right. So, legitimately, it's one of these moments.
Really?
I mean, it's a Seth and Amy moment. That's what this is. And so Shoemaker initially said back on Wednesday he was persuaded that Bev Priestman had, quote, no involvement, no knowledge of the incident, but his opinion later changed. This is the Canadian press. Decision to kick Priestman out of the games made on Blue's recommendation, who stated in the release today more information recently come to light about previous incidents. Blue has pledged an independent review of the situation. Oh, joy.
Great.
Fantastic.
I mean, no, what all this sounds like is that we are doing whatever we think will make the noise go away. Mm-hmm. That didn't work. Let's try something else.
Yes.
Exactly. That didn't work. Let's try something else.
Yes.
And we are just repeatedly trying to knock the noise down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's beginning and ending for them, you know?
Mm-hmm. A couple of other pieces of news before we get out of here. We did mention gossip, rumor, and innuendo, or at least some of the basic stuff this morning. Robert Taylor has signed a contract extension with Messi and Friends through the 26th season with a club option of 27.
He's earned it.
And they have also brought in another, the David Martinez, another defensive player on loan from River. So
I believe there's an option to buy on that too.
Yeah, and so that's possible. And then the move for Diego Gomez to Brighton, I'm guessing that this is where all of that is being pieced together, where if they figure out the Brighton number, and Tata Martino has said, yeah, this is probably going to happen, that number is going to be in the 8 figures, so he leaves, and then you can have Martinez possibly come in and be the swap that's involved in that. We really haven't gotten into Bordeaux and what's happened there. They're basically they wiped themselves off the map.
Yeah, they ceased. They Thanos snapped.
Yeah, they're
this is not just a Bordeaux thing, by the way. Like they might not be the last French team to do this.
No, we did mention about the TV deal and where the TV deal in and of itself right now, and I don't know if it's even been signed, but right now the new TV deal is a 30% drop from the rate that was previously there. If there was going to keep an eye on this league, and Jarrett, to your point about players that were on the Bordeaux roster, one of them currently dinged up, but has a history here in Major League Soccer, Albert Elise, was one of the top 6 highest valued players. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Bordeaux. And what basically happened is Bordeaux was like, we got a 2-week extension to see if we can stay out of the third division. They were relegated to Ligue 2, for lack of a better phrase. Relegated to Ligue 2. Then the French overseers were like, well, prove that you have the finances to make it into Ligue 2. And they're like,
They do not.
We don't right now. Fenway Sports Group kicked the tires on it. Or Friedkin kicked the tires on it. And Friedkin was like, after a couple of weeks, nah. And so Bordeaux filed for bankruptcy and dropped their pro team status after they were relegated to the third tier. So Fenway, they withdrew their thoughts. 6-time French champs demoted. Fenway Sports Group pulls out over takeover talks. All these kinds of things are a part of this dynamic. And I mean, this should be, I don't think it will be, Jarrett, but I think it should be a warning sign for a lot of folks these days.
Yeah, it's gonna be messy. Like we said, this isn't just a them thing. This is like this other French team's gonna have this issue. I know you mentioned Albert Elise before my signal went haywire.
It's all right.
Elise is an interesting animal too in all this because I don't think he's actually played since he had that horrific injury where he had to be put into a medically induced coma. I think he's just been training off to the side.
Yeah.
So you got to wonder what's going to become of him. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Honduran national team players, yeah, man, like this is going to create like there have to be at least a couple players on that roster who can contribute at a professional level at other areas. Like this is going to create an influx of players on the world market who are available on freeze, and let's see what happens, man.
Yeah. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. What to watch today?
Caden Moore.
Oh, what about Caden Moore?
17-year-old center back joins Atlanta United 2 through 2025. Homegrown, January 1st, 2026. Atlanta United 2 has announced that it signed Academy defender Caden Moore to the 2025 MLS next pro season. Moore will become Atlanta's 22nd homegrown signing effective January 1st, 2026.
Nice. Not a surprise. So we'll go ahead.
Really impressive season for him.
We'll go ahead and give him this. And we had the chance to catch up with Steve Cook about Caden Moore and what we've seen from Caden Moore. And that left-hand side of the back line as we get ready for Hunt City this weekend, Caden Moore and DCQ. You want to talk about left back and center back university here with Atlanta?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing is, because I've argued that it's center back you, Jason's arguing it's left back you, and ¿por qué no los dos?
Exactly. ¿Por qué no los dos?
Yeah, man, it's been very impressive to watch them. Caden Moore still has some growing to do. Why he's going to be on a second team deal until 2026. Mm-hmm. Caden is 17, I believe now. For 17, 8 appearances this year. He's physically on a good level. Mm-hmm. He's going to have to keep improving. Next year will be important for him. But yeah, this is a really cool bit of progression for him to take that next step, to be that next center back. Very excited to see how he continues to develop, because that's awesome to see.
Yeah. And Jason got into the broadcast plans. 8:00 or 8:03 kick in Huntsville tomorrow night. We should be on at 7:30 at the latest for pregame. Might be on a little earlier, depending upon everything going on in Huntsville.
Yeah, you'll have fun with that.
Yeah,
I'll be at Silverbacks Park fighting off ghosts.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've got UPSL. Well, I've got UPSL Elite 8. Soda City.
Oh, there you go.
Soda City will be playing. For those of you that don't know, the TLDR on this is, so each state, each region puts out their UPSL champion. For instance, for the Georgia, it was Calandra Pro Profile, KSA. Mm-hmm. North Carolina's winner, or that region, whether it was North or just the Carolinas, was actually Charlotte FC.
Yes, it was.
Charlotte FC chose not to send their team forward into the UPSL playoffs. I don't know why. Yeah. The second place team also chose not to send their team forward in the UPSL playoffs. Soda City, who finished third, got to go instead, went and beat KSA in 120 minutes, and then beat Tennessee this week this last week in a shootout. So Soda City, who was the third team in the Carolinas, is now moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yeah, so Jared will be dealing with that. We've got the beginning of Leagues Cup tonight, 92.9 The Game. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo, and what to watch today before we get out of here. Manchester City have made an offer to sign Dani Olmo from RB Leipzig. Barcelona also chasing Olmo, have an initial bid of £40 million, which would be spread over 4 payments. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for Dani Olmo today, plus $20 million in add-ons. So that's Barcelona. Barcelona wants to do it on the budget plan. Manchester City's like, you got change? We'll pay you in bulk. Leipzig have rejected Barca's offer for Olmo as it falls well below their expectations. That's from Florian Plettenberg at Sky Germany. Well, duh. Jared Branthwaite intending not to sign a new deal at Everton unless they can match the £160,000 a week deal being offered by Manchester United. 4-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has rejected advances from West Ham and would prefer to move it to Inter Milan. United have revisited a potential swap deal involving Wan-Bissaka and Denzel Dumfries. 4-letter paper. Brentford's plans to let Ivan Toney leave could be shelved after his replacement, Igor Thiago, suffered an injury in the preseason. 3-letter paper. Tony's valued at $50 million. If they can get $50 million for him, they're going to let him go, and then they'll reinvest. Trust me. Crystal Palace have agreed to a €15 million deal in principle to sign Senegalese winger Ismaila Sarr from Marseille. Arsenal have opened up talks with PSG about Fabian Ruiz, but a move would require the Gunners to offload a player. Villa monitoring Dortmund and Karim Adeyemi, who's attracted interest from Juve and Chelsea. Napoli winger Jesper Lindstrom has completed his medical at Everton. Fabrizio Romano, Tier 1 sourcing. Remember, and we do not have a Miranchuk update yet either. Chelsea, Kepa could switch places with Andre Lunin in a swap deal with both clubs at Real Madrid. West Ham have made a £30 million bid and offered English midfielder Lewis Orford in a move to sign Villa's Jean Duran. Nottingham Forest rejected a West Ham bid for Nico Williams. Liverpool have been told they'll need to submit a £50 million bid to land Juve's Bremer. Chelsea close to signing Ivory Coast defender Guela Doué from Rennes in a £7.6 million deal. PSG closing in on a deal for Benfica's midfielder Joao Neves. Miguel Almiron is in advanced talks to leave Newcastle for an unnamed Saudi Pro League club. 2 weeks have passed by, so let's go ahead and resurrect that rumor.
Didn't they try to didn't they try and send him off last year?
Why, yes, they did.
And he didn't want to go?
Correct.
Okay.
Uh-huh. So that's where we are. Yes, absolutely true. What to watch, where to watch it. Summer Cup on CBS Sports Network and the NWSL, Bay and Angel City at 10:30. Hartford and Phoenix is at 7:30 in Hartford. Leagues Cup on FS1. Pumas and Austin is at 9. FS2, CPL, York and Ottawa is at 7. CONCACAF U20s is at 10. Honduras and the Dominican Republic. Couple of friendlies. Rot-Weiss Essen and Bayer Leverkusen at 1. Liverpool Real Betis on ESPN Deportes at 7:30. 2 to NA simulcasting Leagues Cup as well as Unimas. Leagues Cup 5 matches on Apple TV and Season Pass. Atlanta, D.C., Orlando, Montreal, Pumas, Austin, Seattle, Minnesota, LAFC, and Tijuana. Plus has Belgian Pro League with Club Brugge and Mechelen at 2:40. Leverkusen, Rot-Weiss Essen at 1. Colorado Springs and Vegas is at 9 o'clock on ESPN+. Fox Soccer Plus, El Salvador and Canada from the U20s at 7. Summer Cup on Golazo Network. Racing Louisville, North Carolina, and San Diego and America at 8 and 10. Paramount Plus is broadcasting the Summer Cup. 2 matches at 8. Chicago, Guadalajara, Racing Louisville, North Carolina. San Diego and America is at 10. Bay FC and Angel City is at 10:30. That's your viewing. What else is on your mind before we get out of here?
Just busy weekend. We got game tonight. All of y'all will be traveling to Huntsville. I'm sorry I won't be able to come, but UPSL said they needed someone to go yell about this game, so here I am. Busy weekend, and then everyone's going to have like 9 days off before the next Atlanta United match. We'll see if Manchuk actually goes down, and then we'll see as the window develops if Atlanta gets linked to any more DPs. So again, please check and make sure that it's Fabrizio Romano or any of your other tier 1 sources, and not like somebody just taking the piss
in their mom's basement wearing underoos. And by the way, England has brought in their own chef into the Olympic Village. because the food apparently is not being cooked completely.
Yeah, and also the transit people are on strike because the French are like the world champions at striking.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's kind of funny watching this all happen.
Yeah. Once again, great show. Thanks to Darin van Tassell for Tormenta to check in on a very, very big day from them. Thanks to Scott Wells, the head coach at Asheville City, as they get ready for the round of 8 in USL League Two. USL League Two show coming out a little later today, as well as our NPSL Final Four preview and our look at MLS Next Pro as we get ready for Asheville. What else? Greg Garza fighting the Mosquitoes, and our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring for the Friday Free Kick. Jason, who is PAing on a shoot for the network on a great feature that we're piecing together for the video side of things. And Jarrett, it's always great to have you come in and crash and let everybody know what's going on in your part of the world and come and hang out as you always do. It's always fun to have you here, my friend.
Always fun to be here to yell about Canada.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to yell at Canada some more, I'm sure. And do not be surprised if early next week, as things continue to grow and evolve, that we try to bring in some voices from there, probably on Tuesday, to let everybody know what's going on. So, Leagues Cup tonight, 2's on the network tomorrow, live from Huntsville. It's going to be a fun weekend, going to be a very, very busy weekend, and we will cover it all here for you on the morning show. So for Jason and for everybody else, Jarrett, since you're here, go ahead and whistle us out.